just as much as the black sheep of the family could be the addict, could be the crazy one, whatever it is, they also can be the really successful entrepreneur, the spiritual leader, whatever, to the highest degree too, because it's actually, you got to have the highest opportunity to let all of that go and return to who you really are and use that as momentum. So it's
Yeah.
as much of a blessing as it is a curse.
It's really a blessing because it gets to highlight that for you. This is the inner work.
Yeah.
Not to do it for everybody else, but just what within you has a similar belief or pattern to heal. And then you're free.
That's why, accountability or self-responsibility is the
Yeah.
superpower. And when you're in a spiritual program like the ones we've taught, that's sort of one of the first teachings is everything is coming from you, not at you. You're responsible
Yeah.
for it all. And
Yeah.
when you realize that, you're the most powerful.
Hello and welcome to the Higher Vibe. I'm your host, Jean Roorda. Today I have with me Brandon Wilcox. He's back for another conversation. Hello, Brandon.
Hello, happy to be here.
Good to have you back. Brandon is a belief alchemist and spiritual healer. He helps people overcome self-sabotage, chronic illness, and limiting or stuck patterns. Love what you do, Brandon. So happy that you're back to have a fun conversation with me again today and to just share a lot about your experience and knowledge and wisdom in the healing realm. One thing that we've both noticed and were chatting about earlier is that fear can sometimes be the elephant in the room when
Mhm.
it comes to healing, when it comes to changing stuck patterns, when it comes to moving forward in our creativity in the world, when it comes to healing. Fear is so often what limits us, and also so often what we don't see or recognize right away, right? It's that elephant in the room. Quite a
Yeah.
large elephant. And yet we seem to have ways of avoiding it so much so that we don't even notice it's there. We might be
Mhm.
like, I'm not afraid. Not at all. But there it is, kind of running under the surface and creating a lot of blocks and limits for us in our growth and development as creative beings. So, talk to me about that. What have you noticed with yourself and with people that you work with? How does fear show up and how does it limit us?
Yeah, it's a great topic and one we could speak on at great length, really, because it's kind of
Mhm.
one of those driving factors in the world that can make it hard to relate with others, make it hard to move forward on your path. It can make all sorts of things hard, right? Because the interesting thing about fear is the fear that you experience is really intense, but somebody else doesn't necessarily experience it the same way. Like you could be really scared and you're trying to suppress it, resist it, deny it, like you said, which ultimately keeps you just feeling it for longer. And somebody else could be totally oblivious that you're in any sort of fear.
Yeah, yeah.
And the tricky thing is it's not so obvious. We're not living out in nature and there's a mountain lion and it's like, oh yeah, you're scared. That makes sense.
Right.
Fear, it's not just a mental thing, it's a biological thing that's interpreted by the mind. And so you might have had a situation that was really new and scary to you at one point that got ingrained in your psyche. And now when you bump into things that remind you of that situation, that fear just really kicks off.
Yeah.
And so, you
And it can
re
feel like there's a mountain lion chasing you.
yeah. Yeah, it'll feel exactly like that.
Mhm.
And fear is essentially something that's remembered from the past or projected into the future or both at the same time, right? And
Yeah.
so, you might get that email that comes across your computer and be in a lot of fear. It could be fear because in the past you got fired via email or
Mhm.
you got bad news delivered via email, found out something scary, right?
Poor
And so
form,
you're,
email to be fired.
yeah,
It
it's not very
happens,
nice. Yeah.
right? And then every time you get an email, you're like, oh no, it's going to be bad news.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then other people they don't understand that fear that you're in, and so you're no longer acting yourself. You're not calm. You're maybe not as, peaceful, loving because you're literally trying to make yourself safe. You're trying to
Yeah.
find that. And somebody else might be like, "Oh, it's just an email. I don't understand why this person's in fear at all." And they might think you're rejecting them or pushing them away, whatever it is, but really they're just scared. And so it can show up. There can be fear of loss, there can be fear of embarrassment, there can be fear of moving forward into the spotlight and actually succeeding, and then you have more to lose. Fear, it can show up in all these various different ways.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that fear affects people, I think, in modern society really commonly is through anxiety, right? It's through panic attacks. And
Mhm.
the thing that I see with that is, so let's just say you had a traumatic event in your past
Mhm.
that was really scary and your body did need to be kicked into action in order to get away from the danger. And
Right.
now you're going through your life and you bump into something that reminds you of that and you start to get anxious, right?
Yeah.
It's a mental image in your mind that says, "Oh, this thing that's happening in the world is dangerous," right? For a lot of people that's just looking at the news. They're like, "Oh, what if there's this that happens or,
Yeah.
World War III, economic collapse, whatever." And then
Right.
that picture, it goes down through their nervous system, and the
Mhm.
body, it responds in sensations, feelings, emotions. And
Yeah.
so it'll send what people feel is that jittering anxiety back up.
Yeah.
And then the mind goes, "Oh, this must really be a danger because you're panicking." And so the loop continues.
Like a
And
feedback loop.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then you become afraid of the fear itself, of the anxiety, and now you're afraid of having panic attacks, and now more and more situations loop you into
Right.
that panic, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger,
Snowballs. Yeah.
And then
It's-
you're living your life to avoid fear.
Right.
And that's not everyone. Some people, it's a much smaller degree, or it's a very specific thing that they have a lot of fear around. And some people, they just avoid it so well, they don't even know that they're afraid of it. Like, say, public speaking. You might not
Yeah.
have
That's
to do it too much.
right. I've heard that's the number one fear.
Yeah.
The most universal fear that everyone has.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how getting up in front of a large audience for almost everybody just brings up so much
Mm,
fear. Yeah, literally
yeah.
to the point of like
Yeah.
physical symptoms and shaking and
Yeah. Well, for a long time, people's safety had been correlated to tribe, to connection.
yeah.
There was safety found in, I wouldn't necessarily say their status, but them having a position within society.
Yeah,
You'd
the
have a much harder
belonging.
time surviving on your own. And
Right.
so all the possibilities that the mind can come up with,
Hmm.
it all kind of ties into that biological trigger of, oh, I might be cast out from the tribe, might mess this
Right.
all up. Yeah.
Do I belong? Right? Get up in front of an audience and are these people going to reject me?
Hmm.
And then that's the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kicks on that biological fear of if you're rejected, you're shunned, you're kicked out, you have no source of survival.
Hmm.
Wild how biological that can feel. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in
The
our,
the the
if
thing that
our
I
mind
noticed,
is safe, our body's like, no, it's not.
yeah. Yes.
You were saying.
Yeah, that was my exact point actually. You said it. You said it. It's like we can do all these spiritual practices, and I'll share a little bit of my story. Like I had done all these spiritual practices, meditation, everything that I could, but certain situations would still kick on this just primal response of fear.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize just how much fear I was actually living with, and all my spirituality, it couldn't bypass my biology.
Right.
And so I really had to go into those unresolved traumas, those stories that lived in my psyche that hadn't been completed yet,
Yeah.
and acknowledge that I'm not in that moment anymore, and then show my system a signal of safety
Yeah.
any time that those triggers were present. And then that opens you up to tap into your spirituality and it's easier to ascend and you start to get to places where it's like, okay, so all fear is biological. That means it's body based. So the
Mhm.
height of spirituality is realizing you're not the body.
Right.
And then you can live in that peace where
Yeah.
things
And you
don't
can
scare you.
communicate to the body. I love where you said send your body that signal that it's safe, right? So that you as the being, as the spiritual beingness and inhabiting the mind field of the body can give that signal like, I got it, you're good,
Yeah.
you're safe, so that we can really be our soul self without being the effect of the body, but still listening to the body and hearing, oh, you're in fear. Let me give you some safety. Right. Are there specific ways that you do that? When you said, I was like, oh, how did you do that? When you send a signal to your body, is there a specific way that you do that, or is it just more of that like internal communication with yourself?
Yeah, there's a pretty long answer to that, and then there's a
Yeah.
shorter answer to that, so I'll do my best.
You don't have to teach a whole
But
workshop.
yeah, it very easily could be.
Yeah.
But essentially, I'll give you a recent example, actually. I
Okay.
have, you could say, two sort of irrational fears.
Mhm.
Not at all in my head, only in my body's response.
Mhm.
And it's being stuck in really long lines without
Oh.
access to a bathroom as somebody who used to have IBD, and you could say heights. It's not
Mm.
exactly heights, it's like very specific heights, like rock climbing without a rope. And the other day, I had been working on that
That's
pattern
not
and really.
irrational.
Yeah, that one's pretty rational, actually. Yeah, the line's not as much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
heights. Yeah, and so I had been working on that one, and I'll give you a quick summary as to what I did. So
Mhm.
first, I'm gonna go inward, and I'm gonna go back to the trauma that turned that on. And for me, it was a friend who convinced me to rock climb pretty high without a rope.
Mhm.
Probably 80 feet or so. And I had a
Mhm.
moment where I was climbing and I couldn't figure out the holds, and I looked down and
Yeah.
saw imminent death. And
Yeah.
this is the important part, is in that moment I had to become somebody else other than who I was. I had to suppress
Mm.
that fear. I literally had a split second thought, if I stay in this fear, I'm going to shake myself off this cliff and fall
Right.
100 feet to my death. And
You
so
like
I
have
turned.
to override it in that moment. Yeah.
So I had to become this emergency climber
Yeah.
and make the moves, right? So that unprocessed situation is
Mhm.
what stores in the body.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be psychologically traumatic, but
Yeah.
it's biologically traumatic and it's unprocessed. People
Yeah.
sometimes try to go through their past in these big traumatic stories,
Yeah.
but those are the ones that are already processed. You've already been working with them for a long
Yeah.
time. It's
Yeah.
sometimes much subtler. This one was kind of obvious, right? But
Yeah.
anyway, so I had to go through and process that. And what I was believing to be true in that moment was that I was going to fall and I was going to die. And
Yeah.
I didn't. I didn't fall and die, right?
Yay!
And so then the other day I was climbing unexpectedly. It wasn't like I set out to do it. It was just kind of part of a hike, and we just kind of progressed to harder and harder climbing. And I
Mhm.
started to feel that anxiety. And so I just
Mhm.
paused and I notice where it lives as a sensation in my body, because as you remember earlier, sensations and feelings is how the body communicates. So
Yeah.
that old message of you're in danger, you're going to die was coming up. And
Mhm.
so I like to treat it like a little child and not just be
Mhm.
like, oh, you're so silly. You're not going to fall to your
Yeah.
death. It's like,
Listen.
okay, I get
Yeah.
that that's really real for you,
Yeah.
even if it's not true.
Yeah.
And I just hold capacity for the sensation and I
Mhm.
make the mental connection to why it's so scared,
Mhm.
and I just named it. I was like, oh, that's that fear that I'm going to die. Right.
Mhm.
And it just started to dissipate. I didn't try to push it away. I didn't try to release it. I just totally met it, named it,
Yeah.
and I provided the sense of safety that I would have wanted in that moment to myself,
Yeah.
through being able to be with the sensation. And so
Mhm.
instead of it being this crazy anxiety that then causes me stomach troubles, it just all went zoop, and then somebody else was stuck trying to climb down and I actually helped them climb down.
Oh
That's
gosh.
that's how it turns around. Once you
Right.
resolve something within you, you're now
Mhm.
a better coach, healer, intuitive.
Yeah.
You're now, it's a gift, now it's something
Now
you
you
can
can
help
show
someone
up
else
for
with.
others.
And that was a
Yeah.
very direct,
Yeah. Such a great
opportunity to see it.
Such a great example. Yeah, I'm thinking of in people's lives, like how this shows up in different ways. And the example that's coming to mind is if someone experienced trauma as a child, like an angry adult really
Mm,
coming at them in a verbally or physically abusive way, then that kind of memory that lives in the body might pop up as total fear. If anybody either that looks similar to that person or that has a similar type of energy was coming at them, even if they weren't going to, you could say it's irrational. That person's not coming to attack you, but it could bring up that same fight or flight
hmm
fear reaction in the body and really cause you to avoid people, right? So that's going to affect your relationships. That's going to affect your work life. That's going to affect all aspects of your life if certain people coming towards you
Yeah.
trigger fear. And that fear that just lives in the body, it stops you from moving forward in so many levels, whether it's relationships or
Yeah.
career, your work, your creative life. That fear just lives there and becomes a frozen energy, right? We say that you have that fight or flight response, but it's also just like a frozen response. There's
Yeah.
many ways that that fear plays out. You either run away from opportunities or run away from people that could be really beneficial in your life, or you freeze when there's a new step to take or a new thing to create.
Yeah. Some people, it happens so intensely, they even produce symptoms to help shut them
Right.
down. Anytime they try to do a specific thing, a symptom will come in
Yeah.
and be another form of sabotage.
Right.
And it gives them a good out to not do the
Yeah.
thing that
Right.
they're scared to do. I
Yeah,
had,
I couldn't do that because I got sick, right? I
yeah,
couldn't do that because, yeah, I had
yeah.
another. Yeah. And then it can sound weird to point it out as self-sabotage. It's not something we want to hear like I'm doing this to myself. But you're
Mhm.
not consciously doing it to yourself. You're not sitting there going, I'm going to just screw this up for myself.
Yeah.
It's not a conscious thing, but on that subconscious level where that fear lives, it plays out as self-sabotage.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the first step to changing that pattern is just acknowledging one that this is something that lives within you that you can change, right? Rather than it being a point of blame, like I'm blaming, I'm self-sabotaging, like stupid me, right? Rather than adding more
Yeah.
blame or self-invalidation on it, to start with just that self-empowering recognition of I can change this. This
Mm.
is an unhealed wound within me that I can let go of and create a new pattern.
And that's where intuition and pattern recognition comes in handy, because the way to get out of any form of self-sabotage is you bear witness to the sensation and you name the image in your mind, the overlay that you have on your experience to understand why your body's shutting down. I'll give you a personal example again. I have tons of clients that have been through this too, but when I had a sales job, it would be high pressure sales for one, but then it was also selling an emergency product. And so the customer would be freaking out, the
Right.
boss would be freaking out, the workers that were going to do the job would be freaking out. It was
That's a fair,
constant somebody freaking out. And
yeah,
my mind might overlay onto that, like, I'm not going to succeed today. I'm not going to get it done. I'm going to fail. It's going to be an emergency. Then I'm going to get fired.
yeah,
It's going to be just too much stress for my system because I'd literally
right,
get phone calls all day while driving, while trying to do the work. And
yeah,
so I would just get these random like colds or sickness for like a week out of every month. But the interesting thing I always noticed before I even knew some of this root cause healing stuff was as soon as I called into work and said that I was sick, and mind you, I was so sick. Like I
yeah,
really felt like I had a flu. I was taking the medicine, whatever. But as
yeah.
soon as I called out of work and was like,
You
nope, I'm
felt
not
better.
coming in today, it was like, do, 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 do. My health bar went back up. I was totally fine. And so I was like, holy shit,
So
this
interesting.
is a signal that
Hmm.
my mind's putting on this, that I'm going to fail. And that's dangerous because
Yeah.
then I could be fired. I could be shamed. I could be cast
Mhm.
out. I could find out that I'm just bad, not good at all of this. It depends how deep you want to go. And
Right.
so it was creating all those symptoms to keep me home in the nest in
Yeah.
safety,
Yep.
because that's what
You
I
got
was
sick to
continuing to
protect
feed my
yourself.
body, is there's a
Yeah.
danger out here, right? And
Yeah.
you could go a little deeper and go, okay, well, where did I first experience that? Because most people are just reliving the same 6 months of their life over and over again. And they're
Mm.
reliving, if you think about it this way, not necessarily the exact content of, say, your childhood, but
Yeah.
what is your nervous system? What is your psyche experiencing through that?
Yeah.
You'll find you relive that in adulthood through various different situations over and over again.
Yeah.
So after you identify, okay, here's the overlay, I'm afraid of failing, finding out I'm bad, whatever, and here's the sensation that's met. When did I first feel that way? When was that first a problem where I wasn't supported? I didn't have resources,
Yeah.
because me as an adult, it's like, oh, well, that wouldn't be a problem. I'd just figure it out. I'd pivot. I'd get a new job, whatever, right? But at
Yeah.
some point, that felt like a real threat.
Yeah.
And so then that's when you can kind of go back into that and
Yeah.
start to work it. Like, oh, here's where that was. What did
Yeah.
I believe was true at that time? Was it
Yeah.
really true? And what support did I need in that moment? And can I give that to myself by realizing I am the thing that I'm seeking and
Yeah.
bringing that to the sensation in the body, right?
Yes.
Then it releases not just as a affirmation or you trying to talk yourself out of it. Anyone who's listening who's tried to talk themselves out of fear or sickness or
Uh-oh.
sabotage doesn't work, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to actually give that continuous new signal of safety or whatever the new truth is into the body as well, into the psyche as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I love it. And then you can create a new pattern. Like I see it as rather than fighting the old pattern, like you said, trying to talk yourself out of the fear.
Mhm.
To me,
Mhm.
that's like trying to fight the old pattern. Like I don't want this pattern. I don't want this pattern. It's a lot
Mhm.
of resistance to the old pattern. But in this way, when you're nurturing yourself and there's that inner communication between yourself as the being and your body, you can shift the pattern, not by fighting against it, but by really communicating this new, hey, look, there's this safety here. And your nervous system gets to release all that pent up energy and create new patterns in the nervous system as well. So I love what you said about most people repeat the same 6 months of their life. I don't think a lot of people are going to be happy to hear that, but like if we really with humility look back on our lives and go, yeah, there was that period of time where I was stuck in a loop. You know, I was on the hamster wheel or whatever.
Hmm.
On the treadmill, and just every time I wanted to move forward, I found myself back in that same dynamic or that same pattern.
Yeah.
And this really speaks to, hey, first you got to just recognize you are in that loop, and then then you can start to create a new a new pattern. Hopefully not
Yeah.
just sidestepping into another loop, but really moving forward and creating
Yes.
that freedom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
maybe discovering some more loops.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a life outside of looping, you know.
Yes.
That is a thing. You know, you might relive the same 6 months over and over again, but that also means you can be free from the patterns,
Yeah.
you know, as you bring that awareness to them as they happen. And you know, any form of self-sabotage, we could list all of them, right? But to make
Mm.
it simple, any form of self-sabotage, if you ask yourself, not at a conscious level, because your conscious mind doesn't really matter when it comes to this stuff, but if you were to tap in, I like to compassionately call it my inner toddler, because it's
Yeah.
that part of us that's kind of like unreasonable and having a
Yeah.
lot of first-time experiences. It's
Yeah.
like, what is my inner toddler perceiving about this experience?
Mhm.
And what would be my secondary benefit or alternative motive to get out of it? Like,
Yeah.
say you're like, I really want to succeed at, you know, making more YouTube content and putting it out there. But the inner toddler believes that it's going to fail, you're going to be shamed, you're going to have a worse consequence. So every time you go to make the content, your computer crashes, or you delete whatever you were going to say, or you get a panic attack, or your symptoms shut you down. It's like, okay,
Or you
what am
just can't
I?
even get yourself to do the recording, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Paralysis. Yeah.
some like other thing comes up, some busyness or some, you know, schedule
Yeah.
hijacking.
Yeah. You just want to understand what you're subconsciously believing to be true about it and what your alternative motive is for getting out of it. And then the other key with self-sabotage, regardless of which form it is there's also the second layer, which is unfamiliarity.
Mm,
Because your nervous system gets used to whatever's familiar, and it's falsely believing that familiarity is safety
right.
when it's really not. It's the familiarity of the prison that you live in, within your mind, within your life, within your pattern. And so
Ooh, the
being able to be
familiarity of
comfortable,
the prison.
yeah,
That's a
throw
good
some
term.
pillows in that prison.
Sorry to interrupt. I was
Some
just like, that's it.
blankets.
You got to hear that one. That's a good one.
Yeah. And so part of overcoming self-sabotage, besides the pattern awareness and shifting out of it, is being comfortable with unfamiliarity, being comfortable with doing new things. There's some identity that's associated with that pattern, right? It's the you who's a failure. It's the you who's not good enough. It's whatever.
Yeah.
The pattern and the identity is what's familiar. And when you step out of that, it's kind of like, oh, I'm rediscovering who I am, not as just an ego upgrade, but really who are you without that false self? But it's
Yes.
unfamiliar. And that's why in neuroscience, you know, a way that a neuroscience friend of mine would work with this is, okay, you find the pattern and the belief that's in it,
Yeah.
do some random physical task or movement that you wouldn't normally do that totally breaks up your day, and
Mm.
step into who you are if you don't believe that, because you're creating new circuits in your brain by doing a new physical movement. I had a friend who would do silly stuff, like she would just pick up a rock and toss it up and down a few times because she's like,
Yeah.
oh, I wouldn't never do that otherwise. Or like she'd go walk on her hands, you know,
Yeah.
and you don't necessarily have to do it
Yeah.
through something silly like that, although it helps. It could be just a different action, like, say, actually making the YouTube video, you know,
Right.
for that example. Doing it
Yeah, but I
anyway.
like these baby steps of like just do
Yeah.
something totally not what you would normally do.
Yeah.
Something that breaks that pattern of this is who I am, right?
Hmm.
I'm not someone who walks on my hands. Well, let me go ahead and do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would probably fall over, but it's fun to try. Yeah.
Yeah. And even just doing anything that helps you be comfortable being in a beginner mindset or doing something that's unfamiliar as a whole. Like I'll
Yeah.
sometimes just switch up hobbies so I can
Yeah.
be bad at something, unfamiliar with it, and just let that be okay. Because that's what a lot of this reparenting is, right? Is those moments where it wasn't okay to fail, when your
Right.
lovability was determined by how well you succeeded, all these things.
Yeah.
So even just in doing something new and letting
Yeah.
it be fun and there
Right.
being no pressure and all those things being okay, you're making it so your brain can really make those new connections and you can
Yeah.
step into a new way of being, even if it's totally unrelated to anything in your life, like if you're
Right.
just learning a new hobby, you know?
Right. Yeah. It's like training your body and your mind that it's safe to do something totally new that you suck at.
Yeah.
Or that you might not, master right away.
Yeah.
It's a really great practice,
Yeah.
to train that
Yeah.
subconscious mind. Like this is actually safe. It's safe to
Yeah.
break out of a certain pattern or a mold, to make it a hobby to try new hobbies.
Yeah. And you don't even have to do it is like on the defense, like to try to get yourself out of patterns. The other day I usually have a friend who I go to the gym with and he's
Mhm.
traveling teaching retreats. And so I was like, okay, if he was here, what would he do? He always talks to people when we're here, and I get to be the one that doesn't have to start any conversation because I always have him for that. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to make it my goal to talk to one person in the steam room after my gym session.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
lo and behold, I made a friend, we connected and it was
Nice.
a really cool experience. And I was like, oh, my social anxiety, whatever I had of that, just went down.
So great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Really, that says to me you're bringing presence to the patterns, right? Rather than letting them stay in the subconscious and just kind of avoiding them, like, oh, that's there, and avoid it. You're like, that is a pattern that I would like to apply a new
Yeah.
a new rhythm to, and
Yeah.
just break out of the mold of it and to just do the thing, right? To
Yeah.
push past that comfort level, to just do the thing that maybe puts you on the edge of that feeling of safety, but then in that experience you get to train the
Hmm.
mind and the body that no, it's okay, we got this.
Mm. Yeah.
We got
Yeah.
this. So, what would you say for someone who has fear that's manifesting as self sabotage that they're not even aware of, right? They're in that pattern of making excuses or just really not even noticing, like, actually, you can change that, right? You're not the victim to those circumstances. Because when I see that a lot, there's part of me that's like, there's got to be a little, like, wake up call that we can offer. For ourselves too, because I'm not saying I'm not part of this. I think we all do this. What can be that little like wake up call, like, oh, this is self-sabotage, Is there like a, white flag? Wave the flag. Oh, that's self-sabotage. Do you find there's any indicators or anything that gets your attention when you notice those patterns, whether that's in yourself or others?
For sure. And this is another one that could be a whole workshop, but and I'll preface it by saying it is always hard to be aware of your own patterns. You kind of
Yeah.
go into a trance when you're in it, and if anything, you might recognize it in retrospect. But most people, they don't have enough space between them and whatever they're experiencing to recognize it. But the easy red flag to notice when you're in self-sabotage is simply, where are you suffering in your life?
Mhm.
Where is your life out of alignment with you and it doesn't feel good? There's resistance, there's tension, there's pain. There is some level of this self-sabotage that's going on. You're living not as you truly are, and so you suffer. You're living with a lie because the truth of who you are and the truth of life is always affirming. It's not necessarily always blissful, positive, and amazing, but it's at the very least neutral you know so wherever your bad relationship is, your struggle with work, that's
Right.
where you
The
can start
suffering is
to.
the red flag. I,
Hmm.
I love it. See, I knew there was a simple answer to this, Brandon. That's why I
Yeah, yeah, simple, not necessarily
Yeah.
easy,
Not easy though, because we don't want to look at that, right? Because
yeah.
then we have to recognize that we do have the power to change it. And in that mode of self-sabotage, we're being the victim. We're in that identity of powerlessness.
Mm,
There's nothing I can do to change
yeah.
this. This pattern is me, right?
Hmm.
This is just who I am.
Yep.
And so it can bring up a lot of fear to change those identities, to let go of that attachment to those identities. And so I guess we just get really good at putting up with suffering.
uh, a lot of people, that's their
We
tactic,
set the
yeah.
bar really low.
Yeah. Yeah, and then they need all these artificial external means to mitigate the suffering, you know?
Right.
And you're just cloaking it and hiding it from yourself more and more and more. That's why,
Yeah.
accountability or self-responsibility is the
Yeah.
superpower. And when you're in a spiritual program like the ones we've taught, that's sort of one of the first teachings is everything is coming from you, not at you. You're responsible
Yeah.
for it all. And
Yeah.
when you realize that, you're the most powerful. Instead of being a
Mhm.
victim to life circumstances and
Yeah.
everything that's coming at you, you recognize that it's actually all just a reflection of you and it's
Yeah.
your opportunity to be free. It's not punishment. It's not because you're bad or doing something wrong. It's a gift from the universe or God or whoever you want to say to
Yeah.
bring you back to what you really are. It gets to show you, look, you're out of alignment here and we want you back home. We want you whole. And
Yeah.
so there's your suffering to help guide you there.
Well, suffering is the big red flag. It really gets your attention when you let it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that at some point it always gets our attention, right? And a lot of us we have to get to that what they call the dark night of the soul experience, really where the suffering has gone beyond what you can cope with and manage and have all those coping mechanisms to deal with. And you finally hit this wall of like, okay,
Hmm.
this is getting ridiculous. I'm ready for something different. But we don't have to wait. We can look at it right now. Like, where am I suffering? Where is there not a sense of peace and ease and joy and fulfillment and all of those
Yeah.
yummy feelings? Where is there suffering? And then really, yeah, have the courage to look within and see what within you is creating that so that you can create something new. It really flips the script though to go, oh, this is coming from within.
Yeah.
That's a tough pill to swallow. I know I've talked about that on several podcasts. I always feel a little bit of like, are people going to be okay hearing that?
Yeah. There's a solution to that too, right? Because
Oh, yeah?
a lot of healing communities, they then glorify suffering because it is such a potent teacher. But the
Mhm.
thing about it is the suffering only happens to the degree of ignorance and resistance that you have. So
Mm,
when you're misaligned from being who you really are, the suffering, the message, it's going to just be a little ding. And then as you continue to be ignorant or resisted, it gets louder and louder and louder
yes.
until it's the semi truck hitting you. And so, you
Yes, the
know,
proverbial two by four across the head.
yeah. Yeah. So we honor the suffering, but we also don't glorify it,
Right.
because when you start to live in alignment with who you are, you don't have to wait for suffering to be your guide or symptoms to be your guide. It can be,
Yeah.
where am I not absolutely inspired, absolutely joyous, absolutely at peace right now?
Yeah.
And you can start to look at where you're misidentified in that moment.
Yeah.
That's on the other side of it. And then you're expanding just into more joyousness, more peace, more love, instead
Mhm.
of getting tanked in suffering and then going, okay, fine, I'll do something about it. Let me come back to kind of a meh center ground until I get tanked again. No, it can go the opposite direction where those
Yeah.
layers are peeling back and you're feeling better and better and better. And even a slight disturbance in the force, so to speak, you're like, okay, let's look at it before I do anything else. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of like suffering is your best guru until you align your will with God's will.
Yeah.
And then you just get this synchronicity, this alignment. There's not resistance there, there's just curiosity.
Love that. I love how you said, let's not glorify the suffering.
You can
Yeah.
heal through
Let's like,
pleasure too. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I feel like that is a trap that is easy to kind of let ourselves live in. The ego's like, oh, look at this. Suffering is nice.
Hmm.
But it's that kind of band-aid on the powerlessness, and the victim that
Yeah.
that comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Such a new way. Like I said, it's really flipping the script on how we approach life, how we live our lives. And it really is so simple, but not easy. And
Yeah.
I think one of the things that makes it more difficult is just when we talk about suffering, right? What are we talking about? Not only physical pain, but all the emotional layers of pain, all the painful emotions that are part of those cycles of suffering. How do you work with emotional body? Like, what would you say is a good doorway into healing on that emotional level without, as you said before, glorifying the suffering? That's what I notice is there's that mantra in the healing world of, well, you got to feel it to heal it, right? But then I
Mm.
think a lot of times we go a little bit too far into that where you're just in that
Yes.
pain and suffering so much. You're just in this soup of it that you forget, like, that's just an experience you're feeling. It's not who you are. Feel it to heal it means don't resist it, but let it go. Like, you can let it go too, right?
Yeah.
So, what is a good doorway into healing on that emotional level, without, like we said, glorifying the suffering or becoming everything you're feeling and kind of getting lost in it?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked this because this is going to be key to everyone who's been out there trying to do emotional healing regulation and it hasn't been working. And this might be a little controversial or taboo in the way that I see it and approach it, but it goes back to what I was saying of when you're having this self-sabotage, this symptom, this biological response that you can't seem to do anything about, it comes down to the overlay or the interpretation of your mind. Let's call that
Mhm.
thoughts, and
Mhm.
then it gets sent down and you feel a feeling in response to it, right? So feelings by and large aren't necessarily true in the way that thoughts aren't necessarily true.
Yeah.
They're energy that's moving based off of the perception that you're holding, the
Yeah.
content of the story. And so, yes, you want to feel your feelings, but the way that I work with them is you feel your feelings to give you a guide as to what happened in your life that kicked on this subconscious program that's having this unconscious response in your life. So it's like, okay, I can assess. Here's the thoughts that I think about. I call it rumination, right? I'm ruminating on all this bad thing that could happen, and I have this particular feeling that goes with it. That's all the content stuff. And so you go, okay, when was this content first present for me? When did I have these feelings and these kind of thoughts? And without
Mhm.
going too far out, they might not even be your thoughts. It might be something
Right.
you inherited or you picked up from a parent. It was stuff that they were believing all the time about
Right.
themselves. We might get into that later. But you don't want to just sit and process the emotions because all that does is it gives you really good practice feeling that emotion. It just
Yeah.
makes that circuit really, really well known to you without actually going anywhere or doing anything about it. So, underneath the thought and underneath the emotion, there's what I call sensation. And
Mhm.
it's similar to a feeling, but when people say feelings, it's an emotion, right? Is generally
Yeah.
what they're speaking to. A
Right.
sensation is like hot, cold,
Mhm.
expansive, contraction.
Right.
If you didn't have an ego to interpret that sensation, that then creates a thought and creates a feeling, which
Mhm.
is then that chaotic experience, it then enforces the behavior. What's
Mhm.
underneath all of that is sensation because
Mhm.
your body is your subconscious manifest. It is
Yeah.
your subconscious mind. So sensation is literally where the body keeps score, where the trauma is, where the program is. So
Yeah.
you go into the sensation through the emotion, but just as a guide. And
Mhm.
underneath the sensation, you'll find the program of I'm not safe, I'm not going to be okay, I'm not enough, whatever it is. That would have been what you decided to be true about yourself or reality in that first moment where you felt that exact same signature of feelings and thoughts. So
Yeah.
it's a frequency. It's like if you made a picture of the feelings and thoughts and you go,
Yeah.
where in my life is this picture the exact same, this portrait? Boom,
Right.
there it is. The sensation program under it is the key.
I love that because it really brings it back to the body, because
Yeah.
we're not saying don't feel your emotions, but really, okay, where does this live within this
Yeah.
body mind, this body
Yeah.
that is my subconscious mind, and bring that presence to it so that it can release, so that it can let go. So you're not just getting into like you said, a groove of, let me just keep feeling this and feeling it.
Yeah.
If you're just feeling it, it doesn't necessarily release, and you can just
No.
be in that feeling ad nauseum.
Yeah. It's a temporary release at best, and that's why people that do that scream therapy, it doesn't help at all. Here's a good metaphor for it. If you have a kid, let's just say he was playing with something he wasn't supposed to outside, he drops it and it breaks. He runs inside hysterical because in his mind he's going to get in trouble and yelled at and not be loved. If that
Right.
kid comes to you really scared and crying, you wouldn't just say, "Okay, keep crying, go ahead, cry it all out." They might tire themselves out, but you might go, what's the matter? What's
Yeah.
underneath that? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm afraid you're going to be mad. Oh, I'm not mad. It's okay that you broke that. The crying's gone.
Right.
You didn't have to keep crying until it was all gone. You had to
Right.
address the underlying context of I'm a
Right.
bad kid and I'm going to get in trouble, right?
Right.
That's what's still living within us.
Exactly. And in that example, you as the parent, you didn't say stop crying, right? It was like,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, you're feeling something, like acknowledge you're really feeling sad. You really got to the bottom of what is that about, right? And that's exactly how we can treat that within ourselves. Notice that emotion coming up, whatever it is, give it space to be, but then that deeper inquiry, what belief, what picture, what mental image is that emotion coming from? What's living in the subconscious mind that contains those emotions? And then let that go.
Yeah, and is it true, right? That's what you have to
Yeah,
reassess. And it
yeah.
never will be if it's self-deprecating or,
Right.
causing suffering. And people love complication
Mhm.
because they love complexity, I should say,
Yeah, yeah,
because the ego thrives in complexity. And
yeah.
so they make healing so complicated. But if I
Right.
could give the audience just one simple way to
Mhm,
really make progress on healing their trauma and these patterns, it's
mhm,
exactly what you said. That
mhm.
thing with the parent going to the kid, they're not saying don't cry. They're
Yeah,
just saying, why are you crying
yeah.
underneath that?
Like,
And
what
then
is that?
they're
Yeah,
exposing the lie that's in that. If
yeah,
you just meet your anxiety, your shutdown, your depression, whatever form your self-sabotage comes in the same way, not trying to get rid of it or using some special technique to force it away because you don't like it, but address it the same way you would a kid.
yeah,
Acknowledge the thoughts and the emotions as being real, just not true,
yeah,
and then go into, okay, well, what is this based on?
yeah,
Right? And is it really true? You just reparent yourself by holding capacity for
yeah,
that sensation that's there. You just literally, if you can just be with it and you don't have to do anything about it, it'll
yeah.
resolve. That's all it takes.
Exactly. Yeah. It is so simple, and we do complexify it. Is that a word? I like
Yeah,
that.
I like it.
We make
The
we
active
make it much more
complexity.
complex,
Yeah.
but that's the ego doing that, and that's it's a really great awareness to have is who's being the parent, right? If the body mind is like, especially the subconscious mind is like the child, are you coming in as spirit being the parent, or is the ego coming in as the parent? Because if the ego's
Yeah.
coming in,
Mm.
then it's
The
gonna be like,
mean parent. Yeah.
it's gonna be yes. And the ego's gonna be the mean, abusive parent that's like, stop crying, or you know,
Yeah.
keep crying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll give you
And
something to cry about.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. I've heard that one.
Yeah, that's a great ego
Classic
parent
parent line.
line for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and and since we're on the topic of self-sabotage, I'll just give this nugget too. One
Mhm.
thing that I see over and over again with clients, if they can hear that information of letting their higher self, their spiritual viewpoint, reparent that inner toddler, that's
Mhm.
traumatized and hurt.
Yeah.
In people's psyche, they don't want to because they want the apology. They want someone else to regulate for them. It feels unfair that they have to forgive or see it in a
Yeah.
new light. That's where a lot of victimhood can come from too. Or
Right.
they just believe that if they be that person onto themselves, somebody
Mhm.
else won't be there to enjoy the love with
Mhm.
them or whatever
Mhm.
it is. But it's not true. That's the only time where you can really actually connect with somebody else is when you're whole and integrated within yourself, because all
Yeah.
those little inner child wounds are just unintegrated parts of you.
Yeah.
And so nobody else can do it for you. And as long as you're seeking them
Right.
too, it'll never work. And even if someone tries their best, which I have before for other people, it'll always fall short in some way and crumble apart, won't work anyway. So you're the only person that can give that to you. And then you can receive it from everyone because you no
Yes.
longer need it from them.
Yeah. And just that reminds me of that saying, like attracts like. When we're
Hmm.
operating from those unintegrated or wounded inner child spaces, we're going to attract people also operating from those wounded inner child spaces. And then nobody's really meeting each other in that space
Oh,
of love.
yeah.
Right? We're just bouncing off each other's pain.
Oh,
But
yeah.
when you heal that within yourself and you're operating from your wholeness, then that's who you're going to meet. People also, it's not like you never meet anybody with wounds, or but that's when you can really connect with and see and meet in full presence those who are also operating from their wholeness. So
Hmm.
yeah, I love that you pointed that out. That's another fear to do away with, the fear of isolation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. This brings me to the just awareness of, so we're talking about inner child and healing the inner child. How does that look for someone who Because you also mentioned some of it's not yours, right?
Mhm.
Some of these thoughts and feelings we take on from others. So, how does that look? I think you're probably very familiar with this, where someone is basically the healer for their whole family, right? The child that incarnated into the family as kind of the pattern breaker, the karmic family pattern shifter, the healer of the family, really. But when you incarnate as that pattern breaker in the family, you don't necessarily realize that right away, right? In childhood, you grow up not recognizing what's really going on here, and not only are you experiencing maybe what we could call your normal-ish run-of-the-mill childhood trauma, but really an extensive extra layer of that, many extensive extra layers, because you're probably processing, a lot more than just your own if you're the pattern breaker or the healer for the family dynamic.
Mhm.
Do you have any experience with that? Does that sound familiar? Or do you
Yeah.
see? I see that in a lot of healers
Yeah.
where they're the one that incarnated into the family to kind of create new patterns. So they're not just shifting their own patterns of suffering. They're really creating a new groove for everyone in the family.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way that I see it is we come in with these spiritual constraints. Our soul has a certain curriculum that it's ready to learn. And so
Mhm.
we're born into families that are going to set us up for that curriculum to be experienced. And so
Mhm.
where the family is keeping secrets is a big one where that gets passed
Mhm.
down, or where family members aren't doing their own inner work. They're just
Mhm.
coping and they're letting something go on in the background. When
Mhm.
you're forming your sense of self, and that's the information that's available to you, you're gonna unintentionally pick all of that up and integrate that as part of your viewpoint of yourself in the world.
Yeah.
And so all of those familiar patterns that have been unresolved, unhealed, to the extent that the being doesn't know who they are and can't access other information, is the
Mhm.
extent, and just what their soul's curriculum is, right? Is the extent that they will take that on and heal it. So that's why it might land more with one kid instead of another. They might have less of a curriculum, or they don't care as much, right? They don't like pick up on something. It's not that they
Yeah.
don't care consciously, but they don't pick up on there being a disturbance in the force, you could say.
Right.
In
Right.
their mind, it's just like, it's actually kind of a sign of intelligence to
Mhm.
recognize, like, oh, there's stuff that's not right here. It's a sign of spiritual evolution. And I don't want to make a hierarchy of anything, if some people are more evolved than others. It's more
Mhm.
so we're just born with different lenses and
Mhm.
seemingly more evolved or not, because that's our opportunity for growth is kind of through that framework. They might just be
Right.
working on something really specific, their
Different. Yeah.
specialty.
Yeah.
But if you're very spiritually evolved and intelligent, you'll notice that something's off. It's like, oh, the world I came from, there's oneness, unity, love, peace, and what the heck is this? You know?
Yeah.
So they tend to have childhood traumas, pains, illnesses, whatever the case may be. They're the black sheep of the family. They're taking those things on until they are able to recognize what's theirs and what's not theirs. And the red flag is kind of the same. If it's
Right.
something that's causing you suffering, it's something that's
Yeah.
disempowering, it's
Yeah.
probably not yours. It's probably something that was learned behavior. And I had a really fun time with this recently, actually, because I obviously do the inner work, but I also roped in my stepmom to doing it and my little sister to doing it, and they were having all this great healing. And my older sister, of course, she's been into it for a long time too. And so we're all kind of aware of our family patterns within each other, but
Mhm.
I'm selling my house and moving into a new one, and I had it professionally staged and all this, so I wasn't living in it. So I was staying with my parents, and all of a sudden, it's super apparent to me the patterns my dad passed down, which,
Mhm.
with my stepmom, they're very like loud and obvious, and it's easy to be like, you did this to me, right? But with my dad, it's like very hidden. It's
Yeah.
like what he's operating in all the time, and so it just feels normal to us. But it's like, holy shit, here's this huge elephant in the room that hasn't been acknowledged, and now I see where these patterns within me have just been hanging out this whole time in plain sight. And I thought it was a me problem. I thought it was something I had to solve, and you can never
Yeah.
solve a problem that's not yours.
Yeah.
So that one was the one I was stuck on, and so I'm like, damn, all
So
right,
great.
what
So
a
great.
great curriculum life has given me to get to
Absolutely.
see that.
Yeah, because I see that, we don't incarnate into a family with a bunch of problems, that we don't have something within us that we're trying to see and resolve that's a match to that.
Yeah.
And yet, it's usually a lot more blown up in the family around us. That's how we get to see it. It's like so obvious. So we get to heal that within us, but it's such an important recognition, the difference between what's ours and what we've just kind of absorbed from the family or from peers as we grew up, from anyone that we were psychically sensitive to and picking up on a disturbance in the field.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in those younger years, we think that disturbance is part of who we are. And it just sort of becomes part of our psyche. And so as we get older and mature in our spiritual growth, we get to see, oh yeah, this is actually not my problem to solve. This is the family's pattern that I'm breaking by not matching it, not becoming it, not continuing it. And in so doing, you get to let go of what part of you as a soul had a
Yeah.
similar pattern that you were finding. It's like they got to be the mirror.
Mm,
And sometimes it's a little louder,
mm,
than it is within you. But I
yeah.
think that's really what being the family healer is about. It's not trying to go out there and fix everyone in the family. It's just recognizing what's that big match,
Yes.
Is it a fear pattern? Is it a guilt pattern? Is it a shame pattern? What is that big match? And when you heal that within yourself, that's your curriculum. But it also provides this like light on the path for everyone else
Hmm.
in the family. It kind of opens the door like, hey, look what's possible. Look, you too can have this healing.
Mm,
But
yeah.
they have to choose it for themselves and walk that path for themselves.
Yeah, for sure. I love what you said there because a lot of people too, this is one of those things where in communities they can hear that and be like, "Oh, I have this extra bird and I'm the black sheep. I'm carrying all this ancestral weight." And to some degree it's true, but not in the way you think because it's not all this extra work that you have to do like you were assigned, 10 times the chores as everyone else. Your
Yeah.
your responsibility coming back to that piece is just to recognize that it's not valid, that it's not a truth, that it's not something that you have to live from. So just as much as the black sheep of the family could be the addict, could be the crazy one, whatever it is, they also can be the really successful entrepreneur, the spiritual leader, the whatever to the highest degree too, because it's actually you got to have the highest opportunity to let all of that go and return to who you really are and use that as momentum. So it's
Yeah.
as much of a blessing as it is a curse, just
Yeah.
like, a lot of our abilities are. When you don't know how to use them and you're just blown out, it can feel like a curse. But then once you actually utilize it, it's like, holy crap, I have this superpower.
Yeah,
So
this is
even
great.
being your family's healer is the same way. It's a gift. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, again, it's like flipping the script rather than seeing that family pattern that you were born into as a burden. And as the family healer, you've got all this extra homework to do. I love the way you put it, extra chores.
Yeah.
It's like, no, this is actually just showing you where there's something within you to heal. And that's all you're ever responsible for
Yeah.
is your own inner healing. But that does, in fact, seem to quote heal the other in that they then have a clearer path, right? It's like shining a light of awareness,
Yeah.
right? When
Yeah.
you heal it, it's like a big hello
Yeah. Yeah.
to the elephant in the room. It's like, guys, there's an elephant.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone gets to see it.
Yeah. Analogy I like with that is it's like if you have your ancestors stacked up behind you
Mm,
and you're trying to move forward in your life, and it's like all those ancestors' voices saying, "What if you fail?" It's not that
mm,
you now have to clear that what if I fail thought the
mm.
100 times. It's still the same thought. It's still the same lie. You let go of it once and you go, what if I don't? And
Yeah,
even deeper, what if there is no failure? There's only
yeah,
learning, right?
yeah.
And then you take that step forward, then you shine that light back to all of them. They go, oh, wait, we were debating whether you'd fail or not, but it's actually there is no failing.
Yeah,
Oh.
I'm like,
Now that frees that space up for them to be able to
yeah.
see that which you are and feel
Mhm.
your regulation and authenticity and alignment in this new way of being, and they can choose to step into that for themselves as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it becomes an invitation to see things in a new way. I love that. It's such a great image to see all the ancestors like, what if you fail? And then you're, and then they're like, oh,
Uh,
yeah, that is really the teacher and healer in the family. When we say breaking family patterns, it's really breaking those commonly held beliefs within a lineage, right? Or commonly held traumas that are then manifest as various beliefs.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, you get to be like the rule breaker, the game changer by really just letting go of those beliefs, but also creating a new path forward, like you said. What if it's just a learning opportunity and not a failure, you know?
Mhm.
I love that. It's a
Yeah,
total reframe. It's
yeah.
beautiful.
And I, again, just to like reiterate that point, thank goodness there's all 10 of them saying that, because if it was only one of them, it might quietly live in my mind forever. But with all
Right.
10 of them, the pressure's more apparent, the pain's more
Yeah.
apparent. You
Right.
can hear the voice, and it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
great. That's the thing to work on, you know?
Yeah.
So it actually is helping you.
Absolutely. That's such important reframe that you've given us to see it as a blessing rather than a curse. It's so easy to just see, you know, our family, if it's a dysfunctional family or an abusive family or there's a lot of addiction, whatever the suffering is, it's so easy to see it as a burden, a problem, a curse. You know, I'm
Mhm.
being cursed.
Mhm.
Or you're the victim, like you just got dealt some shitty cards, you know.
Mhm.
Being born into that family. But it's really a blessing because it gets to highlight that for you. This is the inner work.
Yeah.
Not to do it for everybody else, but just what within you has a similar belief or pattern to heal. And then you're free. Yeah. And then you've opened the door for so many others
Yeah.
to be invited to walk through as well. But it's so important to reframe that as a blessing because why go through life feeling like you're cursed?
Then you'll live as if you are, and you'll make
Right?
it true. That's how
Everything
programs
will
work.
be a lot of suffering.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you go through life recognizing the blessings, then you're inviting more blessings in more beautiful forms into your life. So great. Love it. Oh, thank you so much for chatting with me today, Brandon,
Yeah,
about
my
healing and
pleasure.
yeah, breaking subconscious patterns. I feel like there's really a lot of that up for everyone right now. I think because in this time we're living in, so much of what was formerly in the subconscious is being pushed up to the surface. It's almost like collectively we're kind of being nudged towards the edge of the cliff.
Mhm.
So we can recognize one, it's either not even a cliff at all, or two, hey, you can fly. It's all good. But there's that pressure, that building up, that release of that which was formerly stored in the subconscious mind. So, one, I think that's going to help people recognize those self sabotage patterns and some of the other types of stuck energy they've been living in. And also just that there's more capacity, more enthusiasm for meeting that
Mm.
with healing and with letting go and yeah, the great purge.
Mhm.
I think we're
Yes.
living through the great purge.
The great purge.
There's maybe some funny pictures that come along with those words, but yeah, the
Yeah.
great release.
Great release. Yeah. I could make a great analogy with that, but I'll hold back because
Yeah, I know. Purge brings up some funny body pictures.
uh,
The
yeah.
great release. Anyway, thank you again so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on The Higher Vibe. We'll see you next time. Hello. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoyed what you saw. If you did, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. Share this with friends. Really helps us out, and we really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you next time.